Today I wanted to do something that I've been meaning to do for a very long time, and that is to address the red pill ideology. So, let us begin. Number one, women are hypergamous by nature, sometimes referred to as the 80-20 principle of dating. It's this idea that women are biologically wired to seek out the top 20% of men, and that they will trade up whenever given the chance, that they have no real sense of sort of loyalty or interest in the bottom 80%, that if anything, they would settle for someone there while looking to trade up. Like somebody who's settling for a job but always looking for a better opportunity will always take a promotion if they can get one. Women basically see men in the same way. Kind of like what we see in some mammalian species. Lions, for example, the pride will switch over to the new male lion if he defeats the old male lion. If he's a stronger, tougher male, the pride will just switch their allegiance to them. Even though that's not even strictly how it happens, it's more like they will be raped, their children will be killed, and then he'll dominate them by force. It's not like they're just trading up on some flimsy whim. But basically, that's how red pillars see women is like, even if they're with you, if you're not a top 20% guy, it's only a matter of time before they cheat on you or leave you for a guy who is. The backing for this is some very loose, very cherry-picked associations with evolutionary psychology and mostly, from what I see, anecdotal evidence. Okay, so mostly they talk about times when this happened to some guy that they know or to themselves, and they interpret what happened as being hypergamy. A girl left them for someone else, and they interpret it as basically her climbing the male status ladder. Particularly when it comes to financial independence, they seem to think that money's a big deal, looks are a big deal, social status and power is a big deal, that basically a woman is only as faithful as her options according to this hierarchy. Now, scientific research pretty clearly counters this, frankly. It does acknowledge that women may have some preferences and some sense of attraction towards certain traits like status and ability. Some women prefer those things. So do men. They have certain traits that are physical that they're more interested in. And in fact, men are more likely to be unfaithful physically than women are. So men are more likely to be hypergamous in terms of physical traits than women are to be in terms of status of the man. But long-term mate selection, long-term relationships is very rarely based on these traits. It's usually based on mutual attraction, kindness, emotional stability, compatibility. And this is backed up by the studies. So basically what the science says is if you're a kind, healthy, decent person, you find someone who you're quite compatible with, you can be relatively assured of their loyalty despite whoever else comes along, like higher status, better looking, taller, or whatever. Those aren't going to be factors you need to worry about. Now, my personal opinion on this is a couple of things. One is, yes, there are some women who are like this. And there are men who are like this. There are men who will cheat anytime a hotter girl gives them an opportunity. There are women who will cheat anytime a guy with a Lamborghini says, "Do you want to ride?" But these people are a rarity. Okay, they're an extreme end of the spectrum. Extremely disloyal, narcissistic, psychopathic, superficial, no way representative of the greater group. There's the other extreme as well. There are people who will be loyal to the worst of the worst. I used to work with criminals. There are people who are dead loyal to them even though they rank the lowest in the hierarchy. There are a very attractive woman who will stay with a gang member who's locked inside and she never gets to see him, and he's awful to her, and he's broke, and he's ugly, and he has no status, and she'll stay loyal to him for the rest of her life. Like there is that end of the spectrum as well, and most people, as in the classic bell curve of normal distribution, are somewhere in the middle. Generally, when you study successful long-term relationships, you find that the reasons people stay together have very little to do with the superficial, materialistic outside image. What I've found is if you're out there dating superficial women, or if you're just out there dating in general, a woman will leave you for a better offer if you are not providing a deep connection. If you're not someone she can connect with deeply and emotionally and become emotionally invested in, which has nothing to do with wealth or status or power, but to do with how you connect interpersonally, then it does become about how you look, or how much fun the other person is, or how popular they are. That's kind of like the default backward setting. Just like a guy, if he's got two girls to choose from and they're both airheads that he can't connect with, he'll choose the hotter one. But if the slightly less attractive one is way more kind and creates a sense of peace in him and pleases him sexually and sees eye to eye on like common values and surprises him with the strength of her belief system, then he'll stick with her. I've seen many dating gurus, many ex-pickup artists who are training others and so on, end up settling for girls that are less attractive objectively than the ones they used to date because this other girl brought more to the table emotionally than those girls did. And that becomes like a trump card. It becomes a veto for all the other factors. Red pillers often refer to divorce statistics to back up the claim of hypergamy. They say women initiate most divorces. And firstly, this is based mostly on US statistics. When you go globally, those statistics change. But even if it is true, when you look at the reasons why people get divorced, it's not because she found a hotter guy or she found a guy who makes more money. It's usually because he didn't put enough work into the relationship. That's the number one cited reason for divorce is a sense of inequality in the effort made towards the relationship. The average divorce happens 8 years into the marriage. Right? That's not some superficial choice. That's not a girl like bouncing from one guy to another like a bee with flowers. 8 years means you put in the work. And many of them, of course, are more than 8 years, and of course, some of them are less. But you don't stick with someone 8 years and then suddenly become hypergamous. I mean, 8 years, you're going to get all these sorts of offers, and there's going to be all these men available. If you really were hypergamous, you wouldn't last 8 years with a low status man and then divorce him. They put 8 years of hard work into the relationship and then finally gave up. And I've worked one to one with many of the guys and girls of divorced couples, and it's clear that that's the reason. All right, that somebody was putting in all the work and the other person wasn't, and they just got sick of it. So why do red pillars believe this? Well, because they want to explain why girls don't stay with them. And they want to explain it in a way that lets them off the hook. If I can say, you left me because the other guy's richer, I don't have to do any work on myself. I don't have to admit that I was a crappy boyfriend, or that I was closed off emotionally, or that I'm not a kind person, or that I'm fixated on transactional relationships. I don't have to look at any of that. I don't have to take responsibility for being too much of a nice guy or being too selfish or being too lazy. I don't have to take responsibility for any of that. I can just say, you're a superficial bitch. It's out of my hands. So it's a great way of just letting go of responsibility and blaming a whole gender for your own flaws so that you don't have to look at them. It's also because if you are this kind of guy who cannot connect well with women, then you're going to repeatedly have this kind of experience. You're only going to attract the most superficial and materialistic woman, and therefore you're going to get cheated on, and they are going to leave you for a better deal. And you're going to be circling through this shallow end of the gene pool with women. You're going to be only dating a cluster of the worst women and thinking that that represents all women. One thing you often see with Red Pill podcasts and videos is them out on the street interviewing people or in a little studio with a range of men and women around the table. And if you notice, there's only a specific type of woman they're ever talking to. They're usually out at night talking to girls who are going clubbing, girls who are very clearly all about looking good, or they have OnlyFans prostitutes and they're interviewing them. This is a very small subsection of women. And it's the only kind of woman they ever really interact with. They're not going to book clubs. They're not talking to university professors. They're not talking to nurses, right? They're not talking to the full range of women. They're just talking to a very specific range and they're getting the same results over and over and thinking that's all women. So what's the alternative view here? Well, it's responsibility. If you are constantly having problems in your relationships, it's not the other people who are the problem. It's you. And that's probably right from the beginning. You are associating with, attracted to, and attracting the worst type of people. If people are constantly leaving you for a better deal, if you have to put on a show with money and looks in order to get someone, then you're the one making the mistake. Where are you meeting your woman? How are you connecting with them emotionally? Are you showing the traits that maintain long-term relationships, like connectivity, humor, kindness, emotional stability? The alternative, and I think this is the alternative to all of the red pill ideology, is work on yourself making yourself a more confident person rather than trying to control others.